Hello and happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys out there. Welcome to today's weekly Animatron webinar. As always, I'm your personal Animatron guru, Bryce, and I'll be guiding you through today's topic of interest, where we are pivoting in the direction of social media. So anybody who is interested in finding out how to use Animatron to benefit their Facebook page or Twitter accounts, excuse me. Got a little feedback in the background here. Let me just take care of this. Getting back on track, I'll be discussing today's topic of the week, which happens to be creating your own thanks for following Twitter video creative. So if you guys really want to retain your followers, anybody who is managing a Twitter account, to be able to respond to them in a positive way. Thanks for following. We're going to create a cute little animation that you can quickly generate inside of the Animatron Editor. So that is what we'll be discussing. If you are brand new to Animatron, totally unfamiliar with our software, whether you're confused about the interface or the tools or what the terminology we use is in our editor, I highly suggest watching our official tutorials playlist, which you can find in the information center or the description area below this live stream. Just click on Show More, and underneath one of these links at the bottom, you'll be able to find your way over to our YouTube playlist of official Animatron tutorials. This is the best way to skim through all of those videos and find out more information about the interface, the tools, the terminology, and all the features that we have inside of the editor. For those of you who are coming to this webinar with questions on your mind, I please ask that anybody with off-topic questions to hold off till the last half of this little demonstration, and we'll discuss everything you have thought about in your own projects. Anybody with topic-related questions, anything relating to creating these little Twitter creatives, these thank you for following me videos for your Twitter accounts, please ask away in chat as we go through, and I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. And with all that said, let's just get right into it. Before we jump into it, actually, I'll ask everybody who is currently viewing, how did you discover Animatron? So just type your answers into chat, and it'd be interesting to find out how you guys found out about us in the first place. All right, let me share my screen with you here. All right, and you guys should see I have a brand new project open up in our Animatron Editor. So simply to create this thanks for following me video, I've already put something together. I want to show you what we're going to be working towards today. So here I have my own account. I've clicked on the preview thumbnail for the actual video itself. And when somebody follows us, a great way to retain their attention or get them to keep coming back to your Twitter feed is to give them something to really appreciate and even make it a viral or shareable piece of content that everybody can enjoy. So this is exactly the video that we'd like them to receive for following us on our Twitter page. So what you'll see here is we have basically a side-scrolling parallaxing background that I have created out of one of our free content library backgrounds. And we also have a couple of imported GIF animations from some popular game culture, retro game culture media. And we also have a little bit of animated text here for you to show off either your brand or whatever your message is to your potential Twitter follower. So again, just to access the project itself, you can open up the thumbnail itself and click on Edit Project if you have access to it or if you're on your own account. So we're going to start off fresh here. So what I did was I created a brand new project. And all I'm going to do is go down to my marketplace. Because this is a new project, it's open for us already. But you can click on this little icon on our toolbar down here, and this will open up our marketplace, which you see in this colorful menu. So what I'm going to do to start us off is create the environment for this animation. So I'm going to select a background. So essentially what I did before, I just click on on the backgrounds category, and I can scroll through all of the static backgrounds that we can currently work with. Some of these do have animations attached to them, and some of them are in a bit different of a display. But what we want to try to accomplish here is creating a parallaxing background. A parallaxing background, if we play through this again, the foreground, the ground plane that our characters are running on, is moving really quickly. And each level of the background, the yellow hills, the green grass, the wall in the back, and little castle shapes in the background, even as much as the clouds, can be parallaxing. That just means that the farther away we want to make these objects appear, we make them move slower along the canvas. The objects closer, like the ground plane that our characters are moving on, we want those to move faster to imply that we're covering more distance over time. So that is essentially what the term parallaxing means. It's just multiple levels of these background layers that move at different paces. So let's scroll through here. We have quite a few backgrounds to work with. Let's see which one we can work with here. Okay, so the one that I chose for our original video was this one with the trees. I'm going to try this one with the hills. It's a little bit easier to see everything that's going on. So I'm just going to click and drag my background to my canvas and let go. And so what essentially, what this does essentially is, because it is a background, it's going to automatically resize the canvas for us. And what we can do to check that is go up to our project settings and click on this little gear icon. And it has automatically changed the background size to 640 by 360 pixel dimensions. So what this is showing us is a static image. If I was to select this, it came in on our layers panel here. It's locked. So I'll just unlock it so I can click on it. So this gave me a static image that I can work with. I can move it around the canvas if I wanted. But what we're trying to accomplish is to get a little bit of visual action going on here. So what I can do is actually break apart this background and work with each individual drawn layer and try to create an animation for that parallaxing effect. So what I'll do to quickly do this is right-click on the background that was applied to our layers panel. So I'll right-click on the layer itself, and I'll click on Break Apart Movie Clip. And what this does is all the layers that are that have been placed inside of that movie clip will come out onto the canvas in their own layers. Excuse me. So through our layers panel, we have our ground plane, and you'll see as I click through here, I'll zoom in a bit so we can get a better visualization here. We have our ground plane. One way to test which layer is actually being selected is just to really, it's to quickly hide and unhide the layer and see which objects are attached to this one layer. So the ground plane has this grass layer on the top of it. And it also has this layered dirt underneath. So that's going to be our ground plane, and that will be at the very top. And you can see how this is layered already. The ground plane is on top because it's the on the canvas, it is the object that is shown in front of everything else. Everything in the background, like these blue hills, the sky and the clouds, and even the bushes and the rocks will be behind the ground plane. So they're actually below the ground plane layer on our layers panel. So we have some rocks that also exist on that level, which I will probably also tie into the bushes, and the bushes are on their own level. Again, if you need to see how many items are attached to this layer, you can just quickly hide and unhide, or just reference the container area around them, and you can see which objects are selected within. And then below that, we have our first layer of background hills, our second layer of background hills, a number of trees to go with those. And then we have the final background mountains. So again, hide and unhide to just make sure that you're locating the correct object on your scene. And then we have clouds that are independent of the sky. So that's pretty sweet too. The clouds we can have move independently. We can even break apart the clouds so that we can animate them separate from each other. So we'll take a look at that in the tail end of this little session here. But since we broke apart the original background, now I can just grab the ground plane and work with this to create some quick animation. Now, to quickly try to bring up this parallaxing effect, what we essentially need to do is duplicate the ground plane and push it off of the canvas, because we're going to be having this animate into view and then resetting and then animating into view. It's going to look like a conveyor belt. You're going to be continually seeing the same ground plane, but it's just going to be animating back and forth. So what I'll do is I'll duplicate my layer, right? I'll select the ground layer itself. Just as a hint for you guys working with the canvas, just to quickly lock all of your layers so that you don't accidentally move them or change their position or keyframe them at any point in time. You can click on the lock itself like this, and it will lock all of the layers in our layers panel. And that also works for hiding. So you can quickly hide and unhide all of the layers in your project. So now that we want to duplicate our ground plane, I can unlock the ground plane, and I can look for my duplicate layer button, which is the second button from the left, just at the top of our layers panel. I'll click on this and it will make a copy of the ground plane itself. Now, why I chose to use the duplicate layer button is because I want it to exist exactly on the same level. I literally want them to be aligned perfectly. So what this allows me to do is, now that I have ground copy 1, I can use my arrow keys on my keyboard and nudge. You can even hold down the arrow keys and continue to nudge them. And what we're trying to do is create, let the processor catch up here. We're trying to create a implied conveyor belt. You know, you almost see it in like a Looney Tunes type of gag, where the background is just a continuous moving billboard, so to speak. So what we're trying to do is bump it down. I'll zoom out here so you can see that there's a second ground plane. And we want to bring this up or bump it up against the other ground plane so that they stick together and they look like one ground plane and they're seamless. So a quick way to go about doing that, to make sure everything is lined up, is go to my my second ground plane, the copy that we made. I can set the registration point, which means that currently the registration point was from the overall background image itself, and that's what this little object is here. But I want to lock it into place so that we can bump it up perfectly by putting in the exact coordinates, the position coordinates on the canvas. So to do this, I'll just go to my little registration grid, right, with the ground plane selected, go to registration, and I'm going to try using the bottom left anchor to drag the, basically automatically bring the pivot point of this object down to the bottom left corner. And what this shows me is that at the pivot point, the current position of my ground plane is 639.8, which technically, if you look at the dimensions of our canvas, is 640. So we can make this an exact 640. So I'll just type it in, 640 in the X direction. And then 360 is the height parameter of our canvas. And it's perfectly aligned with the bottom of the canvas itself, which is 360. So the very bottom right corner of the canvas position is 640 by 360. And the original ground plane itself may be a little out of place, so we can kind of correct this. Let me do that real quick. So I'll change the registration, make sure it's at 0 by 360. There we go. Okay, so now we have our ground plane perfectly aligned with the canvas and our second ground plane perfectly aligned with the original ground plane. Now, to group them together, we want to make sure that they stay together as we animate them. So I'll select both of them by shift selecting them on the layers panel. And then what we can do is combine the layers into a group layer. So I'll click on Combine Layers. That's the fourth button from the right. Fourth button from the left at the very top of our Layers panel. And what this did is it nested these two layers together into a group. And I can always click on this little gray triangle to open them up and view them. So what I'll do is quickly rename this Ground. Yeah, let's just name it Ground. And these two will stick together as long as they are both in this group. Now, essentially what I'd like to do is animate them so that they move from left to right. From right to left, actually, because we want our characters to come in from the left side of the canvas and make them appear as if they're running along the ground plane. So what I'll do is I'll go to a point in time where I think would be good for the ground plane to move to fully animate it. I have animation mode on, right? Every time that we discuss using design mode and animation mode, design mode is for when you're just trying to position and make things look proper without indirectly animating them or keyframing them into place. Animation mode allows us to keyframe and animate every single change that we make on the canvas, and that directly correlates with the current time that we're at on our timeline. So wherever this playhead is in animation mode, if I was to make the change, so what I'm going to do is make this position 0. And it just basically bumped everything all the way to the left. And because I made that change in animation mode, it keyframed it on our timeline. So now if I scrub through, it keyframes from frame 0 being at 640 pixels, and I can scrub through, and at the 3-second mark, it's at 0. So this essentially gives you that effect of the ground plane moving along. Now, because we're just seeing the ground plane moving and nothing else, you don't have the same effect you would get if you were to add in all of these extra layers in the background. Now, aside from this, I'm just going to undo here because I need to make a point about what we're actually seeing. We also have the bushes and the rocks to think about. And these are all, I would suggest that these are all about the same exact layer or level. So I want to attach the bushes and the rocks to the ground plane. So what I can do is unlock my rocks, unlock the bushes. I'll shift select them on the layers panel and drag them into the group layer. And when I drag them into the group layer, you'll see a blue line appear. When it's hovering over the name of the group layer, it will place it inside of them. So when I let go of left click, it has now placed it inside of my ground group layer. And I can see this by clicking again on this little gray triangle. And I now have my rocks, my bushes, and my 2 ground planes applied to this group layer. Now, again, because we're creating this effect where we're moving along the plane, we want to make sure that these bushes are part of the second ground plane, or the copy as well. So I can select the rocks and the bushes. And because I want to keep them in the same position, I'll just click on Duplicate Layer. And it places them outside of the group layer, but I can just drag and drop them back into the group layer. And because these are all copies, I know which ones are the duplicates. I'll shift select all of them and then reposition them where I need them to be. So I can hold down my arrow keys again on my keyboard and move these down the line. And we're going to reposition these bushes so that they fit directly on top of our duplicate ground plane. Okay, so that looks pretty good. But what you'll notice is because I duplicated them, the bushes and the rocks are on top of the ground plane. You can see that these bushes are actually over the grass, but we want them behind the grass. So I'll grab my rocks and my bushes, and by shift selecting them on the layers panel and dragging them underneath my ground planes. So ground planes, we want them in the front or on top of our layers, and the bushes just behind it or below the ground plane layers. So now, because they're all in the same group layer, I can select them. And now this is our ground plane copy. Oh, and it animated them. So again, to reiterate on our design mode and animation mode switch, because I made that change of moving our duplicated bushes and rocks over to our second ground plane, and I had animation mode on, it keyframed it at 3 seconds where I had my playhead. So what you can do to remedy this, if you're just trying to position things first and you just noticed, ooh, accidentally I keyframed something, you just select the keyframe that was added by clicking on it. You look at the keyframe itself and it is highlighted in blue, and you hold down left click and drag it back to the 0 frame or wherever the time band starts, and it now has reset it. There are no more keyframes added here. All right, so now that we've reset that, I didn't intend to animate the bushes going from left to right yet. But what I want to do is the entire ground plane, I want to move from here eventually all the way to the left. So again, animation mode is on. Go to my position of the ground group layer itself and change it from 640 to 0. And what this does is takes the center point of those objects and then brings it back to the 0 point, which is the leftmost side of our canvas. And I did that at 3 seconds so that now when I scrub through, my entire ground plane translates across the scene as if it was one piece. So the effect we're trying to go for is a looping ground plane that resets, animates through, and then jumps back to its original point. So we're essentially going to be looping this. I'll right click on the last keyframe at our 3 second mark, change end action, which means that I'd like to change how this time band exists on the timeline itself. So I can choose to have this continually stay put. I can end it so it no longer exists after 3 seconds. I can reverse it so it does the opposite effect. It will just go back and forth, or I can loop it. I want to choose loop, and I'm not sure how many times I want to loop it. You can enter the amount of times here, or you can just click on loop, and it will loop it infinitely. So now you see when I scrub through, every time it goes through a loop, it's resetting it back to its original position and going to the end. So if we looked at this in a preview, let's get to 9 seconds here. We can click on the name of our project. I'll give our project a name here so we're not just unnamed. Again, click to access your project parameters. Just click on this little gray gear icon. Click on name, and we'll just name this parallaxing BG for background example. Parallaxing BG example. And then in order to get a preview, a really quick visual of what our animation appears as, we can just click on the name of the project itself, and it will bring us to the project page. So now you can see the animation playing through here, and it's essentially looking or appearing as if the ground plane continues to keep going, even though we know that after 3 seconds, it's jumping back to the right side off of the canvas and then playing back into the view. So that's a quick little technique for you guys to create these really easy looping actions to give you that effect. Okay, so that's our ground plane. I'll go through and do that for maybe 2 or 3 more, but this is the point where I want to explain parallaxing a bit better. So shape 1, we'll just call this hills. It's always good to name your layers just to know how they're separate from each other. We'll call this hills 2. That's our second set of hills, and then the 3 tree shapes in the background are part of that. And then the mountains in the back, so we'll call this mountains. Okay, so let's do our hills next. I'll unlock the layer itself, select the layer, hills. I will rearrange or reset the pivot point of this object. Again, is aligned to the very bottom of the canvas. So I can just click on the bottom left registration point, and you'll see my pivot point will go down to the bottom leftmost section of our hills. And then just to make sure that they're perfectly aligned, I can reset their position to 0 by 360. Enter. And this just helps us with the duplication process, and it helps us with the parallaxing effect later on. So because I have it where it is, I'll duplicate my layer because I want a second one for that, for the appearance of those hills continuing to play through. With my arrow keys on the keyboard, I'll nudge it. So I'll hold down the right arrow key and it will nudge it to the side. Right, and then we know that it is moving my duplicate, so I can just type in the position that I want it to be there. We know that the bottom right corner of the canvas is exactly 640 by 360, so I'll just type in 640 instead of having to wait for the editor to catch up to my movements of the arrow keys. And this will just automatically position it where it needs to be. Again, because I'm in animation mode, anytime I want to make a change to this, I'm going to make sure that my playhead is at 0 seconds. So this, again, will give you the parallaxing effect if we group them together. So hills and hills copy, shift select both of them, combine them into a group layer. Again, I'll just call this hills. And this is where the parallaxing effect will start to make sense. Because the original ground plane is moving or animating over 3 seconds, we want to make sure that anything behind the ground plane happens over a longer period of time. So let's choose something like 4 seconds. We'll go by second by second. So I'll move my playhead to 4 seconds. I'll make sure that my hills layer is selected, and I can just type in the position we want this to be at. We want it to be at 0. So I'll type 0, hit enter. And now, because we've made that change in animation mode, it has applied the keyframe to the 4-second mark. To make this loop, we just right click, change end action on the keyframe, and loop. So now we have our ground plane looping at 3 seconds and our first hill layer looping at 4 seconds. So essentially, the ground plane is moving faster than the hills. And then we can do the same thing for the second set of hills, right? This has the trees on it. So what I'm going to do is unlock the hills 2 layer and the shapes, which actually happen to be the trees. I'll select them all as one group and combine, and then combine them into a group layer. So I'll call this hills 2. And then I'll open the group layer because I need to make duplicates. Again, I'm just quickly going through here and getting through all the tedious points, resetting the pivot point. And then what I can do at the 4-second mark, I want to position them first. So I'll go back to 0 seconds. I will duplicate the layers for these, drag them back down into Hills 2. So I'll take my copies and nudge them to the right. So it's just like we're duplicating two backgrounds and trying to get them to animate seamlessly and continuously with this parallaxing effect in mind. So again, I can select here. Let's see, I think this may be different because I have multiple shapes. Be a bit more difficult to align, but we'll see if we can get it to line up properly. 640. There we go. And then I'll close my group and then select the Hills 2 group layer. Again, whenever you see these little gray triangles, it means that they're grouped into a nested layer together. Again, to continue the parallaxing effect for our second layer of hills, I'll go to the 5-second mark. Let's see here, 5 seconds. And bring the position back to 0, the leftmost part of our canvas. And now that has animated over 5 seconds. And now I want to loop it, right-click on the keyframe, change end action and loop. So you can see our looping actions happen 1 second after another. And what that means is the ground plane is moving faster, then the hills plane is looping again after that, and then again and again and again. And they get slower, essentially happen over longer periods of time as they go back into the distance. And this will achieve our parallaxing effect. So again, for the mountains, and if we wanted to do this for the clouds, we could also, but I'm not going to get too far into this. We were already at our half-hour mark, and I want to show you how to do a bit more of this with text and characters. So again, with the mountains, I'll select it here. While I'm going through this long-winded, tedious process, I have another question for you guys. Have any of you who are currently watching previously used any other online editors or animation tools, and which ones did you use? So type those answers into chat, and while I'm waiting, I'll continue my little tedious event here with our mountains. All right, shift select my mountains, group them. Rename my layer into mountains. I want to achieve the parallaxing effect, so I'll go to 6 seconds with the next layer in the background. And I'll just change the position of this group to 0, and it will move it all the way to the left. I want to achieve, I'd like to achieve the looping event of the background moving as a parallaxing effect. So I'll right-click on the last keyframe at 6 seconds, change end action, and loop. All right, so now I have the ground plane moving, the hills moving, and the mountains moving all on separate layers. And of course, I could go on for clouds and sky and continue the parallaxing effect. But just to get another preview to see how well this is doing, I can click on the name of our project and look at our project page. And you can see how the effect works. Visually, it's a bit mesmerizing to know that you've created this. It's just 2 copies of the same ground plane, of the mountains, of the hills, of the trees. But because they're animated on separate layers and they're animated over separate periods of time, the parallaxing effect adds just a little bit more to the visual element of how we are, trying to keep people visually involved or keeping their attention held to where we need it to be. So now that we have our environment set up, we can talk about importing your own characters. And you saw from my first example, I have a couple of famous retro gaming characters, Super Mario, Mega Man, and Sonic the Hedgehog. So what we can do is take a look on, simply do a Google search. So we can basically do an online search for these retro characters. So what I'll type in is animated, let's see, animated character GIFs. Let's see what pops up here. So once you type that into Google, make sure you switch over to images. The images tab will support animated elements. So you can click on any one of these animated characters and see what we can get. There's a robot. Let's see what else we have here. We can click through some extras and see if there's anything that we're happy with using. That's kind of cute. Specifically, we're looking for something that has a transparent background. This way we can see through to the background that we've worked so hard to try to create. That's a 3D. We want to running. Let's see if we can do this. I'm going to add the key term transparent to it and see if that adds anything. That's pretty cool. Okay, so here we have Lion King with transparent backgrounds. Let's see if we can get one. There, that should work pretty good. Okay, so we have this little animated lion running, and it's a side profile. So all you need to do, we know that this is an animated GIF. We can click on View Image, and this gives us the exact GIF image. Save image as, and just make sure that you're saving this to the correct location. So we can go to the desktop. I already have, let's see, webinar folder, and we can just quickly rename this. I will rename this to Lion Running GIF Anim. Enter, and it saves it as a GIF image. So the way that we need to bring this into Animatron is a cool little tool that can also be found online as an open source tool. Sorry, an open source tool called EasyGIF, easygif.com. And with EasyGIF, you can quickly take GIF images that you find online and split them apart into sequential frames. Because we want to bring these in individually in an image sequence, I can choose File. I can go to the folder that I saved it to, Lion Running GIF Anim. I'll select it, and once that's loaded into the frame extractor, we can just click on Upload. It will show you a preview of this animated lion. There are some optimization options you have here, and one is redraw every frame with details from previous. What this does is it just optimizes the clarity of the image itself. And then we can click the little button that says Split It. And by splitting it, it gives us every single individual image broken up into its own picture file or image file. And then we can download the frames as a zip folder to keep them all in one place. What I'll do is I'll open up my webinar folder here, create a new folder, call this Lion, and I'll just drag everything into it. And I'll even drag my zip file into it. open my folder, find the zip file, and then unzip it to its current location or extract it. On a Mac computer, you'll have to use an unarchiving tool to try to extract all of your images to one file. So what we have here is a continuation of frames, and they are sequentially numbered from frame 0 to frame 8. So this is 9 frames. If you guys remember back to our importing image sequence webinar, or even some of the tutorials that we have with importing image sequences, they have to be named in order, in numeric order, with these frame buffer numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will look for those inside of Animatron. So let's go back to Animatron. We have the folder, we have the files, the individual sequence files. Make sure they're all selected, and just drag and drop them onto the editor, and it will import all of them and ask you to create an image sequence from them. So what I can do is just tell it how long for each image to exist. A quick way to get an idea from this GIF extractor, from EasyGIF, the way that it names each file, it gives you the exact delay in seconds for each frame to exist. So this delay is 0.03 seconds. You can see that at the tail end of each frame name. So what I can do is try to match that as close as possible. Now, Animatron likes to work with hundredths of a second within divisions of 5. So I'll do 0.025 instead of 0.03. And I'll hit enter, or yes, create. And this will send it to our canvas, and it will add it to its own layer. You can see the group layer with all the frames. And if we zoom in on our timeline, we can see each frame. I'll show you the layers. We can see each frame laid out back to back on our timeline from 0 to 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have all of them. And then because the last frame continues to exist, what I'll do is I'll right-click on that last frame, and I will change the end action to end. So this entire animation, this sequence, only lasts for 0.25 seconds. It's pretty quick. It happens very fast. But the idea here is that we want this to loop as well. So I'll hide all of the embedded layers inside of our image sequence, our lion. I'll call this lion GIF sequence. If you really wanted to give yourself a reminder, this is a little bit more of a hint for you guys out there, is to add the exact sequence timing in the title of the layer itself, or in the name of the layer. So I'll just do 0.03s. So this reminds me that if I ever have to go back into this image sequence and space it out for timing, we can always take a quick look at this number and know that the next time I import it or change it, the original sequence played at 0.03 seconds per frame. So now we want to loop it. Since we ended the last keyframe, it doesn't exist after the 0.225 second mark here. But what we can do is hover over the time band, click on this little end action button. Currently it's a stop, which means it doesn't exist after this point. If we click on it, we can change that end action to loop. And again, because I don't know how many times I want it to loop, I'll just loop it infinitely by clicking on the word loop. And if we hit enter, now we have our lion running in position, but it's not going the right way. If you see it matched up, let me change back to design mode so we can position it on the canvas. If we look at what our ground plane is doing, he should be facing the other way. So first I'll line it up to the ground plane itself. That looks about right. Oops. So what I'll do is I'll grab the whole sequence itself and move that down. But since he's facing the wrong way, we want to make sure that he's flipped the other direction. So I can right click and transform and flip horizontally. And this will essentially flip him to the right. Oops, the whole sequence needs to be flipped. So another thing you can do here, in order to keep it all as one object, is to actually convert the entire looping animation itself into a movie clip. So to do this, you just select the group layer and hit F8 on your keyboard. And F8 is our shortcut key to convert into a movie clip. Or if we want to go back here, I'll undo that. The other way to convert to a movie clip is right-click on the layer and convert to movie clip. Again, just look to the right for your little shortcut key hints, and F8 will turn this entire sequence into its own movie clip. So some funky stuff is going on here. I'm just going to investigate what these individual keyframes are doing. Interesting. It's sometimes these group layers will look at the topmost image or the current image that's in view, and it will only change the image that we've tried to realign. So I just have to make a little correction here. I think that was accurate. -10. Okay. We'll stick with that. I'm not sure if that's 100%. You know, sometimes you run into these small issues. But because it's converted now into a movie clip, what we can do is exactly what we were trying to do before, is flip the entire movie clip horizontally. That means when we look into it, our lion will be facing to the left. But if we look from the canvas level and we right-click, transform, and flip horizontal, the entire clip is played, but it is flipping the entire image to the side. But when you go back into the movie clip itself, they're pointed to the left. So this is just a quick way to change the position and angle and orientation of any of your images, especially your image sequences, on the canvas layer. And now that we have it pointing in the right direction, we can animate him coming into place, or showing up onto the canvas. So what we want to do here is make him look like he's coming from off stage from the left. So at 0 seconds, I'll just hold down my left arrow key and nudge him off the canvas. And this will be his starting point. And then let's go to, let's see here, where's a good point in time? So let's look at, I think 30 seconds might do it. So here we go, 60 seconds. You can see with the parallaxing layers that because they loop continuously, if we wanted this to be a loopable animation, which means it will continue to play in the background and look seamless, there will never be a breaking part, essentially a point where you can tell that the video stops and then converts back to the very first frame. We should always look at where these keyframes, where these looping keyframes line up. So I'm just looking down the timeline, and 60 seconds is the very first place that actually all the ground plane, the hills, the mountains all line up together. So if you want to make it seamless, look for where all of these keyframes line up together in a row. Otherwise, what we can do here is we'll still use the 9 seconds. Actually, let's change this to 12 seconds. It's a good amount of time. So let's say at the 6-second mark, we want the lion to show up in the middle of the video. So I'll move my playhead to 6 seconds on the timeline, switch over to animation mode, and I can nudge or just type in the position. Since I know that this is 640 wide, I can do half of that and get them right into the middle of the stage. So I'll do 320, enter, and he is now in the middle of the stage. So from 0 seconds, he's off screen, and to 6 seconds, and he will stay in the center of the stage until the very end of the clip at 12 seconds. So again, go up to our name of the project itself to find the preview page, click on that name, and preview the animation how it's shown. So now we have our running lion animation playing on a parallaxing background, and where all that's left to do is add the text. So you can literally just add, hit the T key on your keyboard, click on the screen, type in "thanks for following," whatever message you'd like to convey to your audience. And from here, you can change everything from the font type. We have nearly 1,000 fonts to choose from. And you can also upload your own custom fonts, let's say from dafont.com, DAFONT.com. They have some really cool, unique font styles in there if you had something in mind. But keep in mind that all of these are animatable inside of Animatron. You can cut them apart. You can convert them all into vector graphics, which means you can warp them and do your own custom animation to them, or text effects. You can change their opacity. You can change their color. You can be really creative with just the font in Animatron. So once we've chosen a font, what I'll do is I'll favorite it. And I'll just click on this little star, and that goes to my favorites list. And I want to make sure that it's positioned properly. I'll use my alignment tool to center this piece of text to the canvas itself. And then the last little treat here is that we have text effects, automatic text effects, right on the text layer itself. So with the text selected, go down to Effect. You can click on the None button. Currently, there are no effects attached to it, but we can do Twister, and it gives you a little preview at the bottom. You can do Whoosh, and we have also Type, which looks like it's being placed by a typewriter. So we'll do that. You can add some custom presets for this. There's a fast typing or a slow typing, different types of twister. So to give you the same effect that I had in there before, let's just use default. I'll just click on twister and go back and make sure that the effect is on. You can click on the word effect, and this will turn the effect on and off. And just by scrubbing through here, you can see the letters flow into place. Okay, so now I can go back to my preview. We have our running lion on our parallaxing background, and we have our final bit of text. Thanks for following. Thanking your Twitter followers for joining in with whatever company or whatever promotion or service that you're offering through your social media. And from this, you can directly export or share. Click on the little share icon to Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Tumblr, and just email it if you so desired. So that is the quickest way to render this. And then in order to download this to Twitter, Twitter has some specifications to follow under, but essentially it is anything under 30 seconds And as long as it's less than, I believe, 250 megabytes, not 100% on that. If any of you guys have the answer for that, the direct answer for that, Twitter's maximum media size, I believe it's 250 megabytes. But what you can do is click on the download button, click on video, and you can choose from high definition export, which is 1080p, 720p, or your standard standard definition sizes, and just hit continue. For you guys out there who aren't aware of our video exporting, you must have a pro account to be able to export high definition up to 10 minutes. And a starter account, you'll be able to export, I think, up to 30 seconds of HD video. I'll hit continue. And we'll let this render. So while this is rendering, you can actually click on the close and have the link by email. So if you want to continue working on this project, you can click on this button. It will be sent to your email, and you can quickly access that later just by grabbing the link from your email. But we'll let this go. It seems to be processing relatively quickly here. And we'll let our server render this little animation for us, and we can have the link by email. So while we are waiting for this to fully process, I'll just go through my, actually have a couple of questions for you guys if you're still watching out there. What encouraged you guys to pick up Animatron if you're currently using it today? And what types of projects do you see yourself creating using the Animatron Editor? So just type those answers into chat, and while we're waiting here for this to render out, I can answer those for you or get those answers in. It appears that our video has finally downloaded. Has finally rendered. So I can click on the download button itself, and this will download an MP4 file to your computer, where now I can select, oops, let me bring up my folder here so we can drag this into our folder. And I'll just rename this. Thanks for following. And double click, and you can preview this. And you'll notice because this is an 8-bit, or actually it might be 16-bit character, the image doesn't look too degraded. But if you have something that's a bit more a smaller image and we've upscaled this to 1080p, this might become blurry. So just keep that in mind, that anything that is vector and scaled up is way better, is going to appear crisp and clean than anything that is an imported PNG. And because this is an image sequence, the lion, the PNG images on some image sequences might be a bit blurry. So make sure you're checking for the actual size of those images as well. So other than that, that kind of wraps up our thanks for following little video creative for you guys who are active in the Twitter community as well as Facebook to create this quick little viral, shareable, and and likable little welcoming to your Twitter following. So with that said, we can move over to our live Q&A session. So if you guys have any questions relating to putting this video together or anything that you're currently working on your current projects, please ask those away in chat, and I'll try to answer those questions to the best of my ability. So while I'm waiting for you guys to throw those questions into our chat room, I'll just like to let you guys know that we love to motivate you all to be an active member of our online community with Animatron by posting in our forum and answering and asking questions. And the more you guys have questions, the more you ask, the more that you respond to some of these questions that are asked in the forum, the more answers we'll have to be able to share with the community. And maybe you'll get some really cool ideas from some of these things that people are doing out there. Maybe there's some techniques that other users are currently working on that you have no idea or you're trying to accomplish yourself. So you can always generate really great ideas just by clicking through our forum and seeing what all these other users are trying to create. So definitely go on there and become a bit more of an active member of our community. We'd also love to hear about your suggestions for new webinar topics. Every week, I try to create a topic of the week based on what our most frequent questions are, what our most frequent inquiries are about what your current projects are pointing towards, or what techniques you guys are interested in, what types of suggestions you guys have. I can always work a topic, webinar topic, into your favor by sending those topic requests, those webinar topic requests, into feedback@animatron.com. I'll leave this up for you guys. So for all you guys out there, just go ahead and take a look at my little thanks for following animation, and it pretty much says it all. Thank you for following me through today's weekly Animatron webinar, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Again, I need these topic suggestions. If you guys have any, please send those in to feedback@animatron.com. I'll type it into chat so you guys can get a direct link to any suggestions that you might have or questions about your projects. Let's see what else we have here. Any of you guys that currently have an active blog, or you have some sort of article website that you'd like to share with the world, we'd love to have you guys write some guest blog posts for us so that we can host it on our blog and we can get some synergy going with collaborating between your blogs or your creative articles and Animatrons. So if you'd like to, you can send us a draft of your guest blog to feedback@animatron.com with the subject line of guest blog post first draft. If it's inspirational, something we feel will boost our community's intrigue and feel like it's a great collaboration between you creative writers out there and what we're currently doing at Animatron, we'd love to showcase your written masterpieces on our blog. So keep that in mind if you want to get the word out for your own products or your own company or your own writing site. You can send in guest blog posts to Animatron, and we'd love to have those. And don't forget to like and follow and share our Animatron YouTube channel, Facebook and Twitter pages to help our community thrive and really grow and get the word out there. And we appreciate all of your interactions with us. And I'd really like to finish strong by saying happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. If you celebrate it or not, just have a good weekend, have a great week. And if there are no questions in chat now, I'd like to just finish up by saying I've been your Animatron guru, Bryce. I'd love to see you again next week, again every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for the next weekly Animatron webinar. So thanks again for following, guys. It's been awesome to run through up to this point with you guys, and any new web topics or webinar topics that you have, I'd love to hear them. So again, type those into feedback@animatron.com, and we'll get a new webinar topic, hopefully related to something that you're really intrigued by. So thanks again, everybody. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the turkey and have a great night. Bye-bye.